How do I see Granger as President Granger? David Granger, as an individual, is very serious about a number of things. Honesty is one that he is very serious about. And to be quite honest, people who feel that they are supporters, this, that, please be aware that if they do any hanky-panky, Granger will not think twice to see that the right thing is done. That's the man. He may be quiet. People says he's soft. Ladies and gentlemen, I would remind you, please don't ever see the bad side, because he can be very harsh if he has to be. I've heard some soldiers, officers talk about discipline that he put to them. And those officers are so supportive of him now because they knew they were wrong, and they felt that not because he knew them that he would let them off. That's the type of man. Education. David Granger has seen what education has done for him. He feels, I know strongly that he feels that education in this country has to be looked at seriously. Why in 2015 we have young people who cannot read and write? People going to represent this country who cannot fill out an immigration form. That is something that I think that he will pay a lot of emphasis on education.
Well, as I said, I see him as a very caring person, and I think he would be a caring president. I think he would like to see the same things that he tried to instill in his officers and soldiers in the army. I think he would like that for the people of Guyana. He would like to see young people educated. I think he would like to see people living in good homes. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but good homes, a good shelter. I think he would like to see proper health care, a proper health care system. Because why I say this is because these are some of the things that he did when he was force commander. These were some of the things he looked for when he went to the various units to be sure that these people are taken care of. So I see him as a caring, if he were to be, and I won't say if he were to be, when he becomes president, I think he would be looking for those things. I know it would take some time, but I think that he would be a good president. He's a good guy, man. And I'm not just saying this because I worked with him. You know, he's a good person. He's a decent man.
You know, in answer to your question about what sort of a president Guyana needs at this time in our history, it is probably one of the most crucial periods in our history. We need someone at the helm who can take us away from the situation where we're in, where the world does not even want to look at us, does not know that we exist. We are not a global player in any sense of the word. And we have had our fair share of problems and atrocities to deal with over the years in Guyanese history. And we need to redress them. On the global stage, Guyana cannot survive in the way that it is, isolated on the northeastern tip of South America any longer, because the world is rushing by. And to make us relevant globally, we have to put up a team and field our best team, as you do in any sport in the world. You find your best athletes and you put them forward. And that's what we have to do very urgently. We have to look among our myths and try to find people who have a willingness and an understanding of the problems that we face as a country, and people who have the ability to go out there and put us on that global map, because the time is running out and we need to get there, and we need to get there very, very quickly. And I believe that Mr. Granger has a lot of the qualities that can take Guyana to a better place.
In growing up, even at Bartik and Wim, a lot of the people were poor. A lot of the people I mixed with were poor, and you couldn't escape that. And certainly by the time I got to the quarantine, it was quite clear that there were rich people and there were poor people. And I felt even then that I was on the side of the poor people, farmers, you know, personal milk, you know, persons who had cattle, and ordinary working people. So I would say that it has always seemed to me to be a battle of ensuring that people were able to live comfortably. Even when I got to Queens at secondary school, it struck me that many of the students there were not rich. I mean, many people think that Queens in those days was a privileged place for rich people, but many families struggled to get their children to Queens, and people had difficulties in getting through Queens and paying the fees, because in those days it was before scholarships. Some people had scholarships, but most people in my day, between 1956 and 1964, were fee-paying students. And many of them were quite poor. And they worked hard, they studied hard, they didn't want to let their families down. And I was always drawn towards poorer people than to the richer people. I was always drawn to people who were underprivileged and people who were, I suppose, privileged in society. And in those days, it was quite clear that Guyana was a divided society. More horizontally, you know, in the sense that there was a rich upper class and a very large, poorer lower class. At the same time, I don't think that people should be poor. I think that we should try to eradicate poverty. I don't think there's much in poverty to justify its continuance. And I'd like to see more people lifted out of poverty. It doesn't mean that they're going to become bourgeois. It means they're comfortable. It means they have good education, good health, stay out of crime, and good housing, and good social relations. So it's not a question of being bourgeois. This is part of my vision for a good life. I believe I believe in what might be called an organic theory of society. People have different roles to play. The state has a role, business has a role, working people have a role, property owners have a role. And the whole idea is to make sure that society works in harmony, and that no part of society dominates another or exploits another part of society. So there's no need for crime, really. You know, there will always be some petty crime. There's always some delinquency. But there's no need to have a society in which such a large section of the population is suffering from poverty and cannot, you know, get to eat properly when the day comes, suffer from illnesses. So I don't see myself as bourgeois. I would like to feel that more Guyanese could become comfortable, what you may want to call middle class. But the big problem for me is the eradication of exploitation. And I don't want to see any form of exploitation. And I think most of the poverty I see in Guyana is a result of exploitation. There is enough land in this country, there are enough resources, and I feel that people should not be deprived of the type of education, the type of opportunity for employment, which would end up making them poor. If people are poor, it's because they're badly educated or they can't find employment, usually. Well, the eradication of poverty is one of the important priorities. I normally state my priorities by listing education first, but education is necessary to eliminate poverty. But my goal certainly is to eliminate poverty, and I do believe if people were better educated, they can make employment for themselves or be better employed by other persons, by other corporations or the government. But, you know, I'd like to see a lot more entrepreneurs, certainly. But education is the key. But once you have people who are poor, extremely poor, you will have problems in society, because what we see sometimes is a cycle of poverty, what I call hereditary poverty. You discover that people are poor, and when you look, their parents are poor, and their grandparents are poor, their friends are poor. And I think this creates a culture of poverty, and my mission is to help people to break out of that poverty and start a virtuous cycle, a cycle of employment. Their families will be better educated, better employed, and they would enjoy that good life to which I aspire, and I think all Guyanese should aspire.